Cashomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
We're glad you're joining us for the 91st edition of the GeoGearHeads. We're joined tonight by a cacher known for some incredible hides and some equally incredible events. And we're going to talk about Halloween events. I'm the bad cop, and before we get to our host, Daryl W4 and I have some housekeeping to do.
Yeah, first I'm going to share the schedule for the next few shows. Recording next Thursday, October 3rd, John Robb joins us again for a discussion about hiding night caches. Perhaps that's just in time to put the finishing touches on your Halloween hides. On the 10th, we're joined by Rob Walsh for a little departure to talk about the history of podcasting. He's one of the few people I know who still podcasts and can say that they've been podcasting longer than I have. I'm sure we're going to get a little bit nostalgic then, and maybe a little insight as to where podcasting is going to go. On the 17th, we're talking about ways to get good coordinates for your waypoints, geocaching or otherwise. And of course, we have a bunch of items queued up for the next randomized show, so we're penciling that in for the 24th. If you have a night cache, please let us know your experiences, good and bad, in hiding and maintaining that cache. If you're looking to hide a night cache, let us know what obstacles you're up against. Perhaps we'll be able to give some ideas. When we talk about podcasting on the 10th, we'd love to hear your first experiences with podcasts and even which podcasts are your favorite, and not just those for location-based games like, geocaching. You can write those into GeoGearHeads at Cashomaniacs.com or call them into our voicemail line at 206-350-3647. And don't forget to tell us all kinds of stuff for that randomized show. It's a great place to stick your feedback, questions, tips, and tricks. So send all of that stuff along as well.
Daryl, I really do like those randomized shows. So thank you to everyone who's participated in the 2013 GeoGearHeads Travelers Race, and to gxproxy.com for their donation for most of the gifts. We've already shipped out about half of those gifts, and we have a few who've responded with their pleasure once they've received the gift. So, we give good stuff here. But that means we're still looking for shipping information from a couple of you. If you have not sent shipping information to Daryl, please contact us at GeoGearHeads at Cashomaniacs.com with your mailing address, your geocaching.com screen name, and which one of your travelers competed. You can toss in the name of the traveler, the travel bug number, for any of those that you had in the race.
Yeah, and one more quick correction before we get to tonight's guest. The YouTube video doesn't keep the questions from the live Q&A. To view those, you have to watch through the Google Plus post. It doesn't actually carry over to YouTube. So unfortunately, that's not something that's really all that useful over on YouTube yet. So don't know how much we're going to use that. We'll definitely try it again for the next randomized show.
I wasn't aware of that. Thanks for letting me know that.
Yeah, so, kind of unfortunate because that is such a cool idea to be able to index a show through those questions.
Mm-hmm. It is. You click a question, it jumps right to that part of the show where it's answered. That is a fabulous way to do things.
Oh, it is so incredibly cool. And it would have been kind of handy tonight as well, even for us to just kind of bookmark the show. Mm-hmm. When we have Monkey Brad on the show, who we actually talked with him back on the original Cashomaniacs way back November of 2007 for episode 55. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, you are really known for doing some of the excellent Halloween events. And this is all down near your place in Tennessee. And this year you have the main event, which is going to be on the 19th of next month, October. And that's the 8th annual Loyal Order of the Sleepless Nights. Actually, that's not the big one, is it? That's the not so big, the easy one.
Yeah, that's a nice and easy one.
Yeah, so that one's GC4MN75. The really big one, which is the big Halloween one that everyone knows, is actually after Halloween. It's November 2nd, and this is the 11th annual Haunted Halloween Caching Evening, GC4MN7M.
Yeah, this year we usually do it the first Saturday after Halloween. That way we don't compete with trick-or-treating and other parties. And we also found it a couple of years in that we can buy Halloween materials much cheaper the day after Halloween. So it cut down on some of our expense.
Nice. That's a really good way to do it. That way you're not keeping these things, 364 days because, you want to use them next
Exactly.
year.
Well, we discovered, like I said, we've been doing this for 11 years. This was the first iteration of this event was the first event that I ever threw. We lived 40 miles far away from the nearest caching community.
Wow.
And I said, people come to my backyard and we'll have hot dogs and celebrate Halloween.
Well, why don't we actually get into those past events, because as you said, there's 11 of them, and I've got all of the links for all of those, so we'll put all of them in the show notes for anyone who wants to go back and check them out. But maybe give us a little bit of history, starting with the Halloween caching events, which have actually changed names across the years, but they're generally about the same thing: the annual Haunted Halloween, caching camp out, cookout, whatever it might be for that year.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's always evolving. Like I said, the very first one, I think there were 13 people that showed up total, including, I think, 4 or 5 of us that were hosting. From that, it's grown into something. We've done full-scale productions with casts of over 20 people. It's been really interesting to see how things have grown. We try to do it some years fairly lightweight. Every year I say, this year I'm not doing anything crazy. We're going to keep it nice and calm. So, 2 years ago we were going to do a really calm one. So we built a 100 by 50-foot maze, a full-scale maze that you had to go through that had people hiding in it. It had all kinds of clues you had to collect, a secret room in the maze you had to get to find the cache. That was, a nice, easy way to deal with things. This year we're doing a nice, easy, laid-back one that is going to involve a cast of about 15 and a dinner party in the middle of the event where a murder will happen. We're going to kind of follow the clue theme where guests will have to try to figure out who done it, where, and with what. There's a pretty good chance that somebody will have done it in the park with an ammo can.
Well, Monkey Brad, your idea of easy and my idea of easy, I think, are 2 totally different things.
Well, it's funny is the first year we decided to do an easy version. We said, we'll do something nice and easy. We'll do the Thriller dance-off.
Okay.
So we had a cast of 18 who learned the Thriller dance. And then we ended up with a full-scale lighting rig and sound system in the middle of the field with a hayride that broke down right in front of the place where I was attacked and turned into the Michael Jackson zombie in front of everyone's eyes, and then we did the entire Thriller dance. That nice and easy event took about 6 weeks of rehearsals to get everybody up to speed. The great thing here is, the thing I really want to stress is that I don't do any of this alone. I have a great crew of people that always jump up and volunteer to help out. And, when you start looking at trying to put together a cast of 15 or 20, then, if you've got 15 or 20 people that are part of the show, there are another 10 people behind the scenes. And my local group of Tennessee cashers always step up and really help out. I honestly do very little. They do most of the work.
That's so great to have a crew like that to back you up and make these events such a success.
Well, we always try to keep it geocaching themed. We try to have some sort of a puzzle cache that goes along with it. And if you look back through the years of events, we will have a cache that will be published the day after the day of. And we look at the party as kind of the interactive version of that cache. For example, we did one called MacGuffin's Bluff many years ago, which I still think was one of our best. That was a Civil War-themed ghost story where you had to go through and solve the coordinates. You had to solve several puzzles along the way. We had a cast of 17 on that and an incredible puzzle page that went along with it. And after the event was over, you can still go through and do MacGuffin's Bluff. You can see the videos that we shot there, posted there on the page. And then you kind of work through things. But if you show up for the event, you get the full-scale, fully interactive version of the cache.
Very cool.
Nice.
Now, all of these obviously have had a lot of work put into them, and we don't have a whole lot of time to get a cache published and listed for Halloween at this point. But maybe for people thinking of doing one for next year, what are some of the key tips that you can give them if they're going to look at doing something that's this involved?
The real key is to start planning early and put your team together because, like I said, nobody does this kind of thing on their own. Matter of fact, tonight I just came here from a meeting with the crew that's doing the show this year. And we're already working out assigning parts and getting costuming together and what kind of stuff we're going to have to put together. So that's the real key, to get your team together first. And then just come up with some sort of theme that you think will entertain people, because that's really what it's about. That we bring our community of cachers together. And I look at it, it's my job now every year at Halloween to do something that entertains people. And that's the real key. Just remember who you're doing it for. It's never for yourself. It's always for the community.
Yeah, and obviously you have one of the easy, or I shouldn't say easy, but one of the harder parts of planning an event like this, the facility, already taken care of because it's out there at your place. Well,
when we first started, I did it in my backyard, and then we have a fairly good-sized farm that we would do hay rides on. Oddly, in 2009, I began reviewing, and I've decided to not invite everybody to the farm anymore because it was kind of strange. Sometimes people don't like their reviewer. I get that. I understand. But it kind of feels strange to invite everybody, hey, come over to my house if you're mad at me. So I moved it to the grounds we also own the grounds where GeoWoodstock 7 was held. So now we have it there in front of the main stage where we held GeoWoodstock 7 every year. And that gives an opportunity. We have bathroom facilities there, lots of power, places for people to camp for the weekend. So it makes it a much more, instead of just a few hours one evening, it's basically an entire weekend of fun.
Well, that makes it really great. Yeah, and I would have to think that that's going to be the biggest problem for just about anyone who's looking to put together a program like this, really interesting cache event of any type, is finding those great facilities.
That really is the key, and I've been blessed that I'm fortunate to have the access to the places I have. We did discover the second year that we did this, we had a large hayride, and it rained all day before. So it was muddy, not that big a deal, but since we had it at the house, we had people coming in and out of the house to use the facilities all night. We had to replace the carpet after that party because we absolutely ruined our carpet with mud. But that's one of the things that you learn. The next year, we hired a porta potty to be dropped in our yard for the week. Those are the little things. Every year you learn something new that you can add to it. And the event just continues to grow. And at some point you look at it and go, wow, we need to scale this thing back a little bit. And we try to do that, but we fail horribly every year.
There's no going back.
You end up with lots of props that you can reuse. And I always tell everybody the one thing that we're never going to reuse is an idea. As long as we're creative every year, it doesn't matter if we're using the same props.
How true that is. Now, Monkey Brad, do you do any sort of swag for this event, like coins or T-shirts or anything to help offset some of the expenses?
I actually don't. We've talked about it a couple of times, but I tend to get so focused on the event that I forget about that till it's too late every year. The one thing that I'll have to bless him for, my friend Robert Lipe, several years ago while I was gone attending to something else, took the plastic pumpkin trick-or-treat bag and passed the pumpkin to help offset the cost.
Nice. I think we've lost Daryl. Hopefully he'll come back in just a few moments.
Which was, I couldn't imagine. I never would have said I would spend that money. Did you go pick up this, pick up that? The expenses add up. So to have a little bit something to help offset the cost is awesome. But by the same token, there's no reason to go as overboard as we do. You can still have a great time without spending anything.
That's good to know. And you mentioned like the carpet was a learning experience. Are there any other learning experiences that you can share for people looking to do this that they might be able to avoid?
If you decide to use tractors, be sure that you fill the tractors up with gas. You don't want to have a tractor quit in the middle of a hayride. Not saying it happened, but it did. And that's the big thing, is to kind of prepare for everything around the board. Have alternate plans if it rains. Make sure that you have enough tents or another place you can go to or another time that you can do the event. Other than that, we lean on the community pretty heavily. Now we do the thing as a potluck. I provide a couple of 100 hot dogs, and I think we do salsas and chips and that sort of things. And we bring stuff for people to bring s'mores. And outside of that, everybody else is kind of responsible for anything that they want to bring. And if they want to bring their own drinks or anything, we kind of let them take care of that part of the party.
Yeah, that always makes it a good, easy, and fairly inexpensive route. So something that we always like to recommend. And, that's one of the reasons that a lot of caching events are actually at the restaurants and things, is because that way everyone pays their own way.
Well, absolutely. And at the same time, you cover things. There's one thing you have to think about. When we were providing all the food and everything, we weren't thinking about dietary concerns. Mm. So, if everybody brings their own stuff, then they know that they have brought something that they can definitely eat. So that definitely helps out.
Yeah, which can also be a problem at the restaurants.
Oh, certainly.
Well, let's move away from the big involved events onto something that's a little bit easier, which is that Royal Order of the Sleepless Nights.
Oh, yes, the polar opposite of the Halloween event. On the cache page, it actually says, I'm providing nothing. And I really, sometimes I surprise people by providing hay bales for them to sit on. One year I bought cocoa, and that's about it. That event grew from a commitment that Ari had. My mother runs a major craft show in Bellbuckle, Tennessee, every year, third weekend of October. And since college, I've helped out by just kind of hanging out there at night to make sure everything's okay. And I've thought about it after we started caching that, I've got to be here all night anyway. Maybe some of my caching buddies would like to come hang out. I put the first cache page up, fully expecting that no one would show up. The cache began at midnight and went till 4 in the morning, and I had around 25 people show up.
Wow.
And it was a great time. It helped keep me awake all night. We had a lot of fun talking about things. The next year I decided to do it again, and that year people started bringing things. Since I wasn't going to provide anything at all, we had a crew that showed up with a truck. They unloaded tables and started unloading catering stuff.
Wow.
And fed us all that evening. So every year it's a surprise to see what people are going to bring. I still bring absolutely nothing except, my questionable conversational skills. And I do provide a fire now. I make sure we have a fire pit every year. And sometimes last year it was, 50 or 60 degrees. It was perfectly lovely. 2 years ago it was 21 degrees at midnight. And not many people made it all night that evening. But I had a few that did. They stuck out there with me.
How come I think of Tom Sawyer and whitewashing a fence when you talk about this?
Yeah, very much so. It's very much that kind of case.
Well, the thing that I'm thinking about with this one is it's there's really nothing to it. All you have is a bunch of people getting together, gathering around, telling stories around the campfire. So this is the kind of thing that just about anyone could throw up in no time at all, as long as you can find the place to host it.
That's really the key. And it's funny, I've hosted a lot of events over the years. I've worked on several megas, and everybody really gets worried about, we're going to do this event. And I believe strongly that if you will just provide a place that the cachers who attend, they make the event. Because if you'll give us an empty field, we'll stand around and talk in it all night. We'll tell great stories. We'll have great fellowship and share things with one another. And that's really what it's all about. It's about building community.
Now, you've done several of these so far, and from that experience, again, is there anything that you've come across that you'd warn people trying to do this kind of a thing for the first time that they need to watch out for?
For a first-time event, I really say the big thing is to not overextend yourself. Don't forget that while you're doing the event, you want to entertain your guests and you want to make sure everybody has a good time. Make sure you have a good time, too. Make sure that it's fun for you and that it's not a burden, that it's not too much work. I've seen many events all across the country, big annual events that become such a burden on the hosts that they don't look forward to it anymore. So that's really a key, is to look for things, make sure that you're having a good time. People aren't going to worry about the details so much. As long as you've got a place for people to show up, it's pretty good if you can provide some sort of restroom facilities. Outside of that, let people have fun amongst themselves. Don't try to manage things too closely. Cachers are pretty good at standing around talking to each other. They're pretty good at finding their own way to have fun. And while it's great to have organized things, and at our events, I always try to have some sort of organized activities for the people who don't know everyone, some kind of icebreaker thing, some in the meet and greet style. But once you get everybody out and talking to one another, just remember to sit back and enjoy the event yourself. It's your party too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what I'm thinking of with something like this that would be really, really cool is maybe you sit around the campfire as the sun goes down doing the stories, tell your worst caching, theme stories. And then,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then the other cool thing would be to then go and find a night cache if there's one nearby, and which actually kind of ties into our show for next week. Is maybe you try to find a event nearby or a cache nearby or a location and put up your own night cache.
Well, I have a night cache called the Night Stalker, the Horseman. It's based on the Headless Horseman, which kind of grew out of one of our Halloween events. And that is a really great way to get people out. And night caches are fun to do in a group anyway. You get lots of flashlights out there. You get lots of people talking. If you can create the right atmosphere, you can just scare people to death out in the woods. And it's kind of fun to set up a night cache. And then, as I like to put it, make it interactive.
Yeah, definitely. And I've only had the chance to do one of those Halloween night caching events. And it wasn't actually a night cache. It was just caching at night. So it was really, really cool and interesting to do that. It would have been cooler if it were actually a dedicated night cache, but even just going for regular caches at night with a big group of people really made it for a great event all the way around.
Oh, absolutely. And if you can find something that has some good history to tie into a good story that maybe has a little supernatural flair, all the better.
Yeah, definitely. So, a couple of really great, easy options for people. Well, one not so easy, but this is a really very easy option. The other one, not so easy, but a great option to do a really good, massive, entertaining event. But there was one other event that I noticed right around Halloween that you guys did, which was back in 2008. You did a morning after the Night of the Living Dead Cedo.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
Oh, I'm trying to remember which one that was. That would be the night after Thriller. Well, that's exactly. I come from a theatrical background. I work in marketing now, and I know a lot of people in the entertainment business. So when I say that we had a full lighting rig, we had a full theatrical lighting rig and sound system set up in a field with cable run forever to get the power to it. We had a pretty good setup. It took us about a week to set everything up. And just by the nature of the show itself, with some confetti and other things going off, we made a pretty good mess. So that was actually suggested by a friend of mine that for us to put it together, to have people come out the next day and help clean up some of the mess that we made, in order to, because that one was actually held on my grandfather's farm, and so my grandfather would let us use that portion of the farm again. We came out and kind of cleaned up that section of his property.
Oh, excellent. That really is a great way to take care of it too, and it gives the people who are staying over, because this is the event that you were mentioning where people can come and camp out and spend a whole weekend doing this event, and it gives them another icon.
Well, and generally, and of course we'll go back to 2008. These days, I try not to do one for us because I look at it now kind of it's my responsibility to clean up after my event. But we're going to have one this year. I don't know if it's published yet. But in the town where we have the event, we do a cash in trash out at the public park the next day that actually does need help. And we try to find a place in town that could really use some help, and we go out and clean up that day, because I look at it as we have a crew of people here who are willing to help and give back to the community. The community is really good as far as working with us and putting up with us, running tractors through their town in the middle of the night. So this is kind of our way to give back to that community and show them that geocachers are good people, and that that we always want to give back.
Terrific. Yeah, that is a really great way to bookend the event too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's something that isn't, again, much work to do, and gets people another icon for those bigger events.
Yeah, and it's funny, that one I had hosted a couple on my own. Now I actually don't run the cash in trash out. One of the other cashers in the community asked if I would mind if he would take over that, and that's his event to run now, and he does a really great job with it.
Excellent. Yeah, and it's a great way to get other caches involved and get them icons as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we wrap up and let you go, give us some info about this year's events, both the Sleepless Nights and the actual Halloween event.
Well, Sleepless Nights, again this year I'm going to provide absolutely nothing. I bought a new fire pit. It's slightly larger than last year, but that's kind of all I'm doing. I really look forward to it because the community gets to surprise me with what we're going to do. As far as the Halloween event, we're doing a clue-themed event. I'm still working out all the details because I kind of put it off longer than I meant to this year because I said I wasn't going to do anything big. But we are going to have a dinner party on the grounds. We will have guests in costume walking through the other guests, and you'll have to ask questions and gather clues to figure out who committed the murder. And we may have some other surprises pop up over the course of the night. My idea for it so far this year is that you won't necessarily know who's a guest and who is a character. So it's going to take some real sleuthing to solve the mystery.
Excellent. That sounds like it should be a great event. And this is all in Belt Buckle, Tennessee, which you guys have about a month from the time that we're recording to make your plans to get to that 11th annual Haunted Halloween Caching event.
Yeah,
evening.
we're right on the grounds where Geo Woodstock 7 was held, so easy to find.
Yeah, so for many people, they'll already know the area.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Brad. It's been a pleasure catching up with you and hearing more about what's always sounding like awesome Halloween events that I really wish I could get to.
Well, one of these days.
One of these days, definitely. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, and before we actually wrap up this show, we have a question from Stevens ad infinitum, who wants to know if there's a easy way to find Halloween-themed events. Is there a filter for that or something? And not that I'm aware of. Is there any filter? You can obviously search for the word Halloween, but that doesn't work so well. The way that I tend to do that I prefer, is to go to geocaching.com and pick their events page, which handles all of the events all over the world by day. It's a geocaching.com/calendar if you want to go to it directly. And you can pick the individual days and just start looking around the weekends and stuff for Halloween if you can make it to an evening event. And I tend to do this also for just any old day that I'm going to be available for an event and kind of, want to hit one. It's just a real quick, easy way to go and click through day by day, and you just see what events are available. If you're in the U.S., it's nice and easy. You just do a search for your state and take a look at those, and just, real quick, easy listing. So hopefully that answers your question. And don't forget that next week we have the night caching with John Robb. The week after, we're talking about podcasting. And then following that, we got many more good shows coming up. So check the Cachemaniacs website for show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider making a PayPal donation through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Zuffenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2013 by Daryl Wattenberg, all rights reserved.